Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to talk about my experience with Coolsculpting, and it was not a good experience. Here I give my reviews on plastic surgery, my good experiences, my bad experiences, and I tell you every little detail about it, and I'm going to put timestamps down below if you want to skip to different parts of the video. And I do try to post new videos every single week about new plastic surgery stuff, so if that's something you'd be interested in, go ahead and subscribe, and let's go ahead and get started. So this was about 3 weeks after I had my nose job. I realized I still had a little bit of extra money left, and I didn't actually just want a nose job. There was more stuff that I wanted. I wanted to do more looks maxing type things. I just didn't know what exactly to do yet, because I had a whole list. So I'd always been so focused on my face that I hadn't really thought much about my body. And I feel like whenever people talk about dysmorphia, at least when I was growing up, it was always about like body type and weight. And there was so much focus on these extremely common topics and a whole wealth of resources of how to lose weight and whatnot. I was never able to find as straightforward content for people who don't like the way their face looked, which was my problem. It's a lot more of a taboo topic, I feel like. Like everyone always is talking about dieting and weight loss, but no one really talks about like, I want my face to look better. That was really not talked about much until very recently, and even today it's still seen as very taboo. And I always kind of wondered why. I think one theory that I had is that the pathway to losing weight is a lot more straightforward than making your face more attractive. It's just calories in, calories out equation to lose weight, whereas like beautifying your face is a lot harder, more expensive, and the advice really differs from person to person because everybody looks so different. Faces have so much variation. And there's also a moral thing to it, like a weird moral attachment to when you gain too much weight. People think, you know, you're gluttonous, you're lazy, whereas if you're like ugly in the face, it's not really seen as like a moral failing. It's kind of just like you're shit out of luck. So for me personally, I've actually always been confident in my body, despite being called anorexic my whole life by both family and peers, which I wasn't. I never was in any type of way. I actually enjoyed just being skinny. I didn't have a big appetite. I had a fast metabolism growing up, and that was the desirable standard body type at the time, and I was proud to fit into it. I got into running as well, lost even more weight. And so while I was called ugly my whole life thanks to my face, I was actually never able to be called fat, and that was a point of pride for me. Can't be ugly and fat. You gotta pick a struggle. But despite me being super skinny, as I got a little bit older into my later teen years, I got like a medium-sized butt and boobs. I was not like skeletal. I actually had C-cup boobs that I was very proud of. And I thought my butt was like decent looking. It's not huge or anything, but it wasn't like flat either. So in those later teen years, early 20s, when I wavered around like 110 to 120 pounds, I did notice that my stomach was not completely flat. And I was being pretty picky. Like it wasn't fat, but like it wasn't flat either. And I'm a perfectionist. I thought about getting liposuction, and spoiler alert, I did eventually end up doing that years later. But at the time, I didn't want like the scars because I heard that it leaves scars in your body. So I found out about this thing called Coolsculpting from the same place that did my lip filler. And all they really told me, because they're only really going to tell you the good things, is that they put this cold device on you and it freezes off the fat. No scars, supposedly cheaper than liposuction, no anesthesia, no downtime. So I went to this place called Ideal Image, and it's a med spa, which had various locations across the USA. This one was in Wellington, Florida. It actually doesn't exist anymore. As of like late last year, the company went out of business. But they used to do really heavy like radio ads in Florida, which is how I knew about them. But they were sued a couple years ago over selling customer data, so that's not cool. Unfortunately, my experience was before that like time period, so I couldn't join the lawsuit and get like a cool $30 check or whatever they were giving out. I would highly suggest avoiding these corporate med spas with multiple locations. They tend to be like a used car dealership or a timeshare office, in the sense like there's very pushy, annoying salespeople. If you tell them you can't afford it, they're going to push you to sign up for these extremely high interest loans and credit cards. And thankfully I had the money up front this time, but they did pressure me into one of those loans in the past. Also, these places have a habit of shutting down, not telling anyone that they're about to shut down, and then if you had like some kind of gift card or prepaid plan with them, like you're basically screwed. There's no repercussion for that. Also, this place in particular was known more for like laser hair removal, and then they would do like aesthetic fillers and cool sculpting on the side. Don't go to a place like that. Go to a place that like solely does the fillers and whatnot. That's like their sole focus. And also try to go to a place that your friends recommend to you locally. A small business that doesn't really need to advertise because their word of mouth is so good. And I know this can be difficult because for me, my friend group isn't really into like the aesthetic stuff that I'm in. So it's hard for me to like find recommendations, genuine recommendations from people in my area who also are into this stuff. But if you're able to do that, really do try to do that because word of mouth means more than any kind of advertising these places can do. That's where you're going to get the most honest feedback. Even like Google reviews and stuff cannot always be trusted because I've left bad reviews on some of these places on Google and it would just be removed. And never any word on why. I would try not to put like curse words in there or anything, which is kind of difficult for me. Even on Yelp, Yelp I haven't had stuff removed, but I have had companies contact me and be like, hey, we saw your negative review. If we give you a refund, can you delete that? So you just have to be very cautious is what I'm trying to say. Try to go to a place that's locally well known and talked about well. So I had a lot of issues with this place from day one. One being the first thing that they changed my appointment last minute to a different day. They called me and they're like, oh, sorry, there's a training that day that we made your appointment for, so we should have never scheduled you. But they never apologized for it. They totally just didn't care. So before the actual appointment, they had to like examine my stomach to see what they could do to it, I guess. And I was super ticklish. Every time this lady touched me, I would flinch. The warning signs were there that this was not going to go well. I get there the day of the appointment, and I don't know if this nurse lady had like 4 cups of coffee or Adderall, but she was talking so fast, and like every time I tried to like ask a question or get a word in, she would talk over me. Hate when people do that. Mildly irritating, but I'm like, whatever. This time she had to grab my stomach fat, whatever was there, and like make markings on it with the marker, rub this cream stuff on it. And it was like tickle torture. I was laughing involuntarily so hard that I had tears coming out of my eyes. It was very intense. So if you're a ticklish person, I would say don't even try with the Coolsculpting. When that was finally over, I had to lay down while she basically grabbed my stomach fat and suctioned it into this machine. And I was scheduled for 2 35-minute sessions, one for each side of my stomach. She began with the left side. However, sucking my fat into the machine also tickled, so it took her several tries to get my skin into the machine, which was quite uncomfortable for me as I involuntarily laughed my ass off. And she was like, oh, try not to move so much. The suction might start to come off of the machine. And that made me paranoid. She turned on the TV in front of me to some Animal Planet documentary, very inoffensive, and not something that was going to make me start laughing, hopefully. And then she left the room. And all the stuff I read about Coolsculpting, oh, it's so painless. You can read while it's going on. You can take a nap. And it's true that it was not painful. I'll say that. It was cold, obviously, but it wasn't uncomfortably cold. The real issue for me was the paranoia. I was so afraid that one wrong move I make was going to unsuction the machine, ruin the whole thing, and make me restart the entire process of her having to do the ticklish thing again and suck it into the machine. So I lay there still as a statue this entire time. But about 30 minutes into the 35-minute session, I could feel it unsuctioning itself, much to my horror. And the nurse came in when the 35 minutes ended, and she walked up to the machine and she says, oh, that's not good. And just add this to the list of things that medical professionals should not say to a patient. About to make me have a panic attack. So as it turned out, I had gone 34 minutes and 2 seconds into my 35-minute session before the machine turned itself off due to a thermal event. And thermal event means that the temperature detected on my body was either too cold or too warm. And too warm would mean that it kind of desuctioned itself and it formed like air pockets. So I only missed about 58 seconds of the treatment, but it still made me super paranoid. And here's a picture of what it said on the machine. And we were going to do both sessions that same day, but the nurse said that because of that thermal event, she couldn't do my right side today and we'd have to schedule me for another day. So this supposedly one-day easy process was now becoming a multi-day thing. And now I have to come in again, request off of work again, go through the whole tickle torture process again, and who knows if this wasn't going to happen again with the whole desuctioning thing. They gave me this binder thing to wear under my clothes for 2 weeks, night and day, to kind of keep the area compressed. This is what it looked like. I don't have it anymore. I threw it away because I hated it. It was not painful. It was just irritating because it was hard for me to bend over. And at the time, I was working in food service, so it was a lot of bending and stuff. 4 days later, I go back for my second appointment, and the nurse I had this time was way better. She was not on Adderall that I could tell, way less talkative and annoying. One thing that I did notice was she was drawing the placement, again, with the marker on my stomach, at a totally different angle than the last nurse did. And I pointed that out. I showed her, okay, there's still little marks on my skin left from the other side. Isn't it kind of higher up than you put yours? And she said, oh, I see that. It is angled a little bit higher up. We'll go ahead and do this one like that. It's going to overlap a little. So she redrew it. That's a little concerning. If I hadn't said anything, was I just going to have a lopsided stomach? Do you guys not have a uniform way of doing things? Shouldn't my placement be noted in some chart somewhere? I know they usually do it on the same day, but still. I'm paying you like $2,000 for this. Maybe have a little bit of consistency. I don't know. I don't know if I mentioned the price. It was about $2,000 for both sides. And this was a few years ago, so it probably has gone up since then. So she suctioned my stomach into the machine, way quicker, tickled me way less than the other lady. I don't know if it was technique or if my stomach was getting used to it. I think it was the first thing because my stomach is still ticklish to this day. And I told her about that thing like, oh, last time it said that there was a thermal event and it popped off. So she strapped it down real securely. I was like a mummy there. Again, I laid down, still as a rock. I was scared to even breathe too hard. And I asked her, I said, I won't have to come back again, right? And she says, no, of course not. We're gonna get through the whole thing this time, okay? Just relax. But this time, 28 minutes into the 35-minute treatment, I felt the area suddenly go hot. And the lady came in, the nurse, and it turned out I had another thermal event. And she said I'd have to come in again for time number 3 for something that was supposed to take 1 visit. And I said, well, didn't I ask you this beforehand? And you were like, no, of course not. You're not gonna have to come in again. Just relax. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I was just trying to be optimistic. So at this point, my trust in these people is very low. I asked a ton of questions. She said that if it failed again next time, then they would do it again, but the limit was at retrying it 3 times. Something I should have asked that I didn't, which is really stupid of me, is I should have asked for a refund at this point because this was not working out. Really wish I had asked it. I don't think they would have given it to me, but worth it to just ask and try. You need to stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself in these kind of situations because they are not going to do it for you, sadly. And I asked, well, next time we do this, can't you just do it for the 7 minutes that I missed instead of like redoing it for 35 minutes? And she said something like, oh, it means that something happened during the process. It might have technically happened before the 7 minutes, so we're going to redo the whole thing. And at that point, I was pretty pissed off. None of this was going as planned. And thermal events was not mentioned when the service was described to me. So I was coming in expecting this easy procedure with no downtime. And instead it's this long-winded nightmare. And this is why I want to make videos like this so other people are more informed than I was. I'm sure there's other people making videos on this stuff too. But a lot of times there's so much stigma around aesthetic treatments and surgery and, you know, other stuff like fillers that people don't talk about it. And because people are not talking about it, you don't get to hear the possible negative side effects. I'm sure it's only a certain percent of people that get this stuff, but it's still important to know. Because the places that are selling you this stuff are not going to tell you about the negative side effects most of the time. Another thing that was bothering me is the more appointments I have, the longer that I had to wear that binder around my stomach, and I hated it. It would get so sweaty and disgusting and hot. And I was just so paranoid. No matter how still I stayed, the machine came off. There was nothing I could do about it. There was nothing the nurse could do about it. And the nurse also made some joke like, oh, the machine just doesn't like you. And it just made me feel worse because it's not really funny, making me feel like it's something I can't control and just really annoying. Not pleasant. One thing that did help a little bit is I remember the nurse telling me that if the binder was bothering me, I could buy something like Spanx. So I did buy that. It was like a soft kind of pant type thing, and it was a lot more comfortable and less hot than the binder. Although I did have to pull it all the way down to pee every time I went to the bathroom, which was annoying. So I remember I got home that day from this Coolsculpting, went in the shower and cried because I was just so frustrated and felt like I wasted $2,000. As the days are going on, my stomach started itching like crazy, and I'm not gonna lie, I did scratch a little bit because it was just so unbearably itchy. And I tried to do that thing that people do with itchy wigs where you pat it. So I'm sitting there like, beating my stomach like a drum. Didn't really work. So next time I went in was about 2 weeks later, and they didn't even do the Coolsculpting. They said, your stomach looks really irritated. I was starting to get these red patches, and I don't think that I was scratching it quite hard enough to get the red patches that I was getting on my stomach. Because whenever I did itch it, I would kind of try to graze it very lightly. You can see I have no nails. I never have long nails. They drive me crazy, so. So she said I'd have to come in again in about a month, and we'd look at the results, and if anything looked uneven, they would do the treatment again. So over the next month, these red patches turned into these big purple marks where the applicator was, and they almost looked like bruises, but they weren't. They weren't painful to touch, and the itchiness started to wear down. It was more like hyperpigmentation, and it was very noticeable, embarrassingly noticeable, especially since summer was coming, and now I feel like I can't wear bathing suits, I can't wear crop tops. And I was really scared because I was worrying, is this permanent? Am I going to be walking around with these big circles on my stomach for the rest of my life and have to explain to everyone what it's from? Again, I was not warned at all that hyperpigmentation was a potential side effect of this. And I wish I had more pictures of it during that time. I didn't take any pictures because I was so scared and I hated looking at it so much. I do have the official pictures Ideal Image Med Spa took of it, which they really didn't want to give to me, more to that later, but I will show them here to kind of show what it looked like. And obviously the before is on the left and the after is on the right. And you can see those ovals there. The lighting isn't very good in these pictures, but you can see it, and I will say that it looked worse in person. So a month later, I come back. They decide by looking at it that the Coolsculpting did work because my stomach was a little skinnier. Despite those giant purple marks, it kind of did its job. When I bent over, I noticed my stomach didn't form as big folds of fat. But was it enough to justify giant oval marks on my skin? No. And I did ask them, hey, can you guys send me the before and after pictures that you're taking? And clearly they did not want to. I don't know if it was because of the marks where you could see them and they didn't want to like give me proof of that, or if they just, you know, a lot of these places, like I said in my nose job video, they don't really want to help you after you already finished the treatment and you already paid them. It's like pulling teeth to get them to do anything. Even though they're pictures of me, you should be able to give them to me. I had to ask them 4 times over the phone, over email, and only when I contacted corporate did they finally give me the pictures. And I had to go in there with a flash drive and watch them drag it to the flash drive. And at that same appointment, I was like, hey, you guys see these big purple marks on my stomach? Are you gonna do anything about that? Again, I should have asked for a refund, but I didn't. Still mad about that. And the nurse was like, oh yeah, I have some hyperpigmentation too. Which blows my mind that you know this is a side effect. This happened to you too, and you're still out there recommending it to people. But they said, we're gonna send you some bleach cream for free, and we're gonna report this to the company. We have to report it to Coolsculpting or whatever. And don't get Coolsculpting ever again. Yeah, I wasn't going to. As if that was even a thought in my mind after all this. Y'all really should have given me a full refund, but I wasn't sure if I should ask for that. Wouldn't have hurt to ask. Please, guys, be confident. Don't feel bad about asking for these things. The worst I could say is no. And the worst that could happen to them is that you sue them. So I got this bleach cream in the mail. I had to keep it in the fridge and just rub it on the area daily. And I will say it did work, but it worked very slowly. It took about 7 months for the marks to go away. Maybe even a full year for them to completely vanish. And now, thank God, there's no marks there. But there was still an entire summer that I couldn't wear crop tops. I couldn't wear bikinis. Couldn't even enjoy the results. The process itself with like the ticklish and the suction thing popping off was incredibly fucking annoying. And I don't know if maybe I didn't have enough fat to put in the machine, but they do check the area ahead of time, so they should have caught that and just told me if that was the case, but obviously they wanted their moolah. But yeah, Ideal Image sucks, and that's why y'all are out of business now, haha. So that is it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have you had Coolsculpting? I heard that you can get here as well. Have you had any negative side effects? I have seen that there was a model from the 90s, Linda Evangelista, I believe her name is, who also had really bad effects from Coolsculpting, but I think she had some worse side effects where somehow the treatment makes fat grow in the area. Thankfully, I didn't have that, but there's a lot of negative side effects to Coolsculpting that I would say don't get it. Just go for the lipo. Or even go for the Kybella. I don't think they do Kybella on your stomach, but they do Kybella here. Don't get Coolsculpting, but let me know what you think down below. What was your experience? And make sure to subscribe for more plastic surgery reviews every week.